My name is Arun Iyer, and I'm going to allow our guests here to introduce themselves. We're starting with Savan.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Savan Kong. I'm the Customer Experience Officer for the Department of Defense.
I'm Bob Cunningham. I'm the Executive Director of our Enterprise Command Operations.
Good morning, everybody. Rick Driggers. I lead Accenture Federal Services Cyber Practice.
Good morning. My name is Davon Tyler, Chief Security Officer for the Federal Student Aid.
Hello, I'm Dr. Tiina Rodrigue. I'm the CISO of CFPB. Anything I say here is my opinion. And past excellence is no guarantee of future, so I'm not endorsing anything. And don't take any of my advice as legal guidance.
Thank you, Dr. Rodrigue. I think you said something for all of us here. So thank you very much. This is our first main stage event, and like I said, it's kind of difficult to follow that great presentation. The title of our session is Building a Resilient Government with Secure Automation. And what I want to do is just get the stage set on the kind of challenges we are facing. We have leaders here from various different federal agencies, and we are now in a place where every constituent, every citizen, everybody who's interacting with the government expects consumer-grade experiences. What that means is it's a personalized experience, and which means that we want them to register with us, which means then we get some demographic information, and that becomes PII, and now we are the stewards of that data. So, Dr. Rodrigue, starting with you, it seems like we are hearing a lot about automation, AI, zero trust in every aspect of IT transformation. So how do these collectively help agencies to prepare and respond to these cyber threats?
The best part about those aspects working together is that it helps identify the patterns more quickly and speeds not only the recovery but the resilience, so that you're able to quickly identify anomalies more You're able to respond to them more quickly. You're able to see whether or not there's lateral movement, and if there is any aspect that you had not accounted for. The best part about automation is that if it's a clear, defined, repeatable pattern, you're able to elevate that into orchestration. And if it's something where you need our big, beautiful brains in order to discern what is the next step, you can get to that step faster.
Thank you for sharing that. And we addressed the secure automation, the secure part of it. I want to go to Bob, if you will, on the automation part, where if you can share what are the best practices that you offer agencies that are just starting to automate, because we know they are on a continuum, right?
Correct. So what you have to do is you have to review all your processes, right? And one of the key things when you're reviewing those processes, you want to think big, the large picture, but you want to start small. You want to take the smaller items and you want to look at those. Make sure that they're optimized before you start the automation. And as you're automating those processes, you also want to look at your tools. And you want to have the best solution for what you're doing. And you want to be able to have reuse. You don't have to always develop it yourself. So you want to have that reuse. You want to make sure that when you're looking at those processes and you have that optimization, that security is always top of mind. If you're not thinking about security when you begin to do it, you're going to find out about it when you have issues on the back end. And then one of the other issues that I think is really necessary is when you're doing the automation is you want to keep it as simple as possible. And then the last thing you probably want to do is make sure you're looking from end to end. You don't have to automate a process 100%. You can pick and choose different areas within a process to have that automation and then iterate and get better.
All right. Thank you, Bob, for sharing that the automation aspect of it. So we started with talking about the data that we are trying to protect, and that's where the resiliency of the government is, because when you present a trustworthy set of applications and systems to the citizens and constituents, you have more adoption. So that turns it into a challenge for somebody like Davon at the Department of Education. You have vast troves of data of the student information. We all know data is monetizable. That's what bad actors are trying to get at. So AI, automation, zero trust, how are all of that coming together in the Department of Education?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think before we got to the how, we really try to center on why do we need to automate, why is AI important, why is zero trust important? And one of the things that we constantly speak to each other about is who data do we have? And we realize very quickly it's the data of our family, our friends, our neighbors, our coworkers, right? There's not a single person probably in this room does not have somebody that they know that does not have data within our system. So we take that why, then we really use that to drive the how. And a lot of that synergy that we created between the teams that we have, between the department, as well as the federal student aid, we look at where do we have troves of data. And one of the things that we worked on is really, truly integration. How do we take the data in other environments and integrate it into a holistic environment so that we can make better decisions, so that we can power the tools that have AI and automation and really drive forward. One of the things that we realized with Zero Trust is that there has to be orchestration between those various pillars. So we worked very hard and really baselining where we are today and really pulling that data together so that we can make better decisions moving forward.
So, we were talking about the data that we are protecting, the automation and the security perspective. I just want to throw open a general discussion question. The resilience against all the cyber attacks and other disruptions, that's something that the government is always trying to get ahead of. Workflows, automation, how are these helping you improve the security operations and the ability to kind of respond to the threats? Open question, anybody want to take that?
Yeah, I could take that, Arun. I think, from a Department of Defense standpoint, so my role is a relatively new one in speaking primarily for the warfighter, but one of the things that we do is we really try to dial in the amount of risks whenever we're actually deploying new technologies, deploying new processes. And what I'd like to tell people is, there was thousands of years ago when you had the first caveman and they were building the first tool, the risk between what that caveman was building to him eventually catching lunch was very low because he was the consumer of that tool, he was the inventor of that tool, and so he knew that the results were going to be three things, right? He's going to get the lunch is going to get him, or he's going to go hungry. Fast forward a couple thousand years, that risk has now sort of expanded because the distance that we have from the user all the way to the tools that we're producing are now pretty vast. And so the key for us is really understanding where we want to automate and scale things so that we can expedite our ability to deploy new technologies, but also know what that customer workflow is so that we can make the right decisions on what to automate, what to improve, and then what to scale back.
Yeah, and I think it's incredibly important, and I want to go back to something that Bob said about simplicity. Particularly when there's a government disruption or something like that, simplicity is going to be incredibly important. And so making sure that what you're automating, you're doing it in an intentional and focused way, and that it adds simplicity to whatever the workflow is. And I also think that embedding security up front and making sure that is purposeful is also incredibly important. And you got to exercise. Right? You got to exercise these workflows. You got to exercise these processes. You got to make everybody understand and be familiar with the automation. That's going to be key to coming out of that disruption.
Yeah. You want to add something?
Yeah, part of what I wanted to share is that by having our aspects all feed into a single pane of glass, we're able to have full visibility from the procurement front all the way through policy and compliance down through to the cyber operations. So by having that consolidation, we get away from the fragmented areas of information to truly executable information that we can then orchestrate and automate. And it's through those integrations that we're able to consistently, reliably protect to the point where at CFPB at least, sometimes people don't even recognize the 10 million threats we protect against every single day.
That's interesting. I mean, I think looking at it from a holistic perspective and getting that information, like you said, in a single pane of glass. But Savan, from the DoD's digital modernization strategy, I've heard of these 4 strategic initiatives that you have. The innovation for advantage, the optimization, the resilient cybersecurity, and last but not least, the cultivation of talent. So how will the user experience portfolio management, that is the office that you are working for, how does that contribute to these kind of 4?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the things that my office is really trying to do is reorient the conversation to less about the functions of what it is that we're doing, whether it's zero trust or whether it's cybersecurity, and more center the discussion around the outcomes of the mission, right? I think there are certain things that are within that spectrum that are important that we need to understand. But in order for us to really deliver for the warfighter, we have to understand the environments that they're in, the conditions that they're working in, the technologies they're using, the challenges that they have. And I would say that there are certain key elements to what that package looks like. And for us, it's really foundational to be able to understand what it is, that baseline that we're working with, and then be able to start to, like I mentioned before, automate some of the things that we need to scale. The Department of Defense is a massive organization. There's nothing that's a one-size-fits-all. So in order for us to really understand how things like AI can really improve the warfighters' lives, we really need to understand the problems that they're dealing with. We talk about jobs to be done in my office, right? The job to be done is a term that Clayton Christensen had coined over at Harvard. And the idea behind that is really that people hire things to achieve a job. And so for us, it's getting back to the basics, right? Understanding what that is. And then we can then apply things like zero trust in a more meaningful way that can have a much greater impact at scale.
Oh, okay. I mean, I know it's a new office, so I think a lot of the specific focus that you have now across all those different 4 pillars that you have. But I want to switch gears into, Rick, you come from a services background, and you see across the landscape of the federal government, you see agencies using automation, AI, zero trust. How are they doing that to improve operational resiliency? I mean, we talked about security, but operational resiliency is also an important part of that. Share?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think from obviously AI, automation, and zero trust, they feed on each other, but there are also different approaches to those. Underpinning the success of any of that is data, data, data. So you got to get a handle on your data. From an AI perspective, we're seeing pockets of successful implementation specific to certain use cases. We're not seeing, kind of wholesale enterprise level implementation of AI yet. There's a lot of planning for it, a lot of readiness. I think that one of the things that really people are focused on is the responsible and safe use of AI, and I think some of the work that is coming out of the NIST Artificial Intelligence Safety Institute Consortium is going to lay the foundation for those types of policies and that planning moving forward. On the automation front, we are seeing automation. I think people have been trying to automate various different workflows for a while using various different SOAR tools and things of that nature. So like threat intelligence to get near to real-time, identification of potential threats and vulnerabilities in your enterprise, incident handling and escalation, incident triage, so that you can have a more efficient, more effective, and faster response time to incidents in your environment, as well as automating playbooks to really balance the workload that your analysts have, and making sure that those kind of routine, mundane tasks are automated so that your analysts can focus on more complex tasks. On the zero trust front, we're seeing a lot of planning. We're seeing a lot of initiatives like the VA Zero Trust First initiative, a lot of resource planning going in. And I think that one of the things that we've seen from an Accenture Federal Services perspective is a lot of focus on identity and access management programs and really getting those mature. And what we are hoping and what we are talking to our clients about is pivoting from that obviously get those programs mature. That's first out of the gate, but then use that as a pivot point to really move into a zero trust journey across all of the other pillars from data security, application security, network security that CISA has laid out, as well as the Department of Defense. That's going to be key. One of the things that we've done, we've partnered with ServiceNow to build a zero trust maturity assessment. It's a zero trust 360. And what it does is provides a comprehensive security assessment of your cybersecurity posture across your enterprise. And once you have that assessment, you have a much better understanding of what your maturity level is, and you're able to put measures in place to really track your progress. And it also allows you to build a strategic roadmap of solutions and actions that need to be taken in a prioritized way, whether it's a technology upgrade or a process refit.
Wow, that was pretty comprehensive, I guess, going across the landscape. And I think I want to just segue into something that you brought up here in terms of CISA's zero trust maturity model. So I want to kind of throw this to each one of you from the government space. CISA has this maturity model where there are 4 levels, and there's the partial, and then there's the risk informed, and then you have repeatable, and then you have prepared, and you have risk optimized. So those levels of maturity, if each of you can share where you think your organization is in that maturity model currently. Davon, you want to start off?
Yeah, I'll go first, and I'll use the analogy that was used earlier. I think some systems we have from assessments that we've done are at mile marker 5, and some systems are at mile marker 1. So as we look across the board, we're gathering where are we at, where do we want to be. Some systems may continue to be at mile marker 1, but again, it's that assessment that was talked about earlier that we're doing across the board. We started with our servicers, we moved on to other systems to really evaluate where we were so we can make targeted investment into those systems. And again, from our standpoint, orchestration automation is key. So from the Security Operations Center, leveraging all that data that we're gathering from these systems, as well as taking the orders from OMBM 2131, and saying we now have these troves of data. What do we do? How can we automate this to enable the SOC to be a better SOC, to enable us to have a better enterprise view of the environment? That's something that we're looking at holistically, but from a system level, we're still looking down and making sure we're making decisions that make sense for that system.
Oh. Anybody, you want to share what is your maturity level in the organization?
Yeah, we're currently between an advanced and optimized state, but part of what we did is we started with avoiding the boom and shifting left. And so now we're continuing to shift left of the build, left of the buy, left of the budget, left of the business case, so that by consistently integrating the governance into the visibility, we're able to build zero trust while they're still dreaming of the solution in that ideation stage of the digital product development. By starting as partners early, we're able to integrate security throughout, and then that's how we were able to get to EL3 on time. That's how we're able to make sure that we have full visibility into each new product. And then in the off chance there might be something new or novel that someone has adopted, we're able to detect it quickly and help it get well immediately.
Oh, can I just ask you to repeat what you said, left off?
Yes, so we wanted to get left of the boom, left of the build, left of the buy, left of the budget, left of the business case.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I like that whole progression of how you approach those things. Thank you for repeating that.
Sure.
So, Savan, you want to share your maturity level?
I couldn't have said it any better.
Yeah, Bob, you want to share?
Same here. With the VA is such a large organization with so many different avenues and so many different applications. It is all about trying to get to the entry point, the left of.
Very cool. So I know we talk about all of these things that we must do. But one of the things that we do is we throw a lot of things to our cybersecurity operations teams who are already overstretched. So, Rick, I think you see a lot of this in the services space when you implement these solutions. What are some of the cultural and operational changes that agencies need to make so that they can position all these new, shiny objects, AI, machine learning, and related technologies? You want to share?
Yeah, look, this is a great question, and it's an incredibly important question. I think that obviously from an operational perspective, we have to invest in AI, machine learning skills for employees across the board. They've got to be comfortable with what artificial intelligence is, what machine learning is. Obviously, robust data management practices, I talked about this a little bit earlier, it really is all about data. Making sure that AI can be successful in your organization and successful the way you want it to be successful in terms of workflows and process automation and things of that nature. I also think in investing and integrating AI into your workflows is going to be important, so start that out, whether it's an MVP or whether it's a pilot, but get started now, because AI is here. It's not coming. And I know that there's a lot of attention about whether we're behind the power curve or whether we're in front of it. We're certainly not in front of it, so I would get started immediately. And then I think one of the other important things is to implement measures. You want to be able to detect anomalies and things of that nature in the AI as it's working within your environment. From a cultural perspective, you have to embrace innovation. AI is going to allow innovation to happen at the lowest parts of your organization, and you want to foster that, you want to promote that. And so I think that embracing innovation is incredibly important. Promoting collaboration, kind of breaking down those silos that we have in the federal government, breaking those down and making sure that different parts of the organization at the lowest ends are collaborating with each other and talking to each other and supporting each other, and then developing data literacy. We talked about AI skills and investments for your teammates, for your employees. Data literacy is going to be important as well, and not just for IT, cybersecurity, and data scientists, but data literacy across the board. So your HR professionals, your budget professionals, your people working in operations. It's going to be important that they have a foundation for data literacy. And I think another very important thing is rewarding risk. Don't be risk averse. And I think Admiral McRaven said this very well, is you have to be able to take risks. You need to fail, learn fast, and move forward, because a lot of this is going to be unknown, the power and the innovation that AI is going to bring to all of your mission areas.
Well said, thank you. We've been talking about the technologies, and I think the audience would probably want to know, what successes have you had? I mean, AI is already here. Machine learning has been here since a while. So if each of you can share what successes you have had in your existing environment, because it's not new. I mean, only the Gen AI part of it is the new one. So if you want to share, anybody take on what successes you've had.
Yeah, I mean, I could start. We've, the DoD in many ways, we have a very vast agency that has a lot of different cultures, personalities, history. Venus was up here talking about the Air Force. Admiral McRaven is talking about his history there. I think for us, it's really about understanding how these things, these tools like artificial intelligence, really sort of impact the mission, and then enabling the department, for example, like standing up CDAO, deploying technologies as prototypes and really sort of iterating on those things, really supports the missions that we have across the entire world. And I think there's conversations about tools and technologies versus outcomes, and I think that's the wrong approach, right? The tools and technologies should be supporting whatever mission that you have, whatever outcome you have. And if you're talking about it as a siloed thing, you're always going to run into people that are reluctant to be able to adopt whatever it is that you're trying to build or buy or deploy in some manner. And so, for us, it really goes back to, are these things, these emerging technologies, helping us to scale the ability for us to deploy in multiple places, handle multiple streams of work at the same time, do the things that you would need to do in order to be effective within your mission. And if the answer is no, then the rest of that stuff upstream doesn't matter what that looks like.
So I think a lot of what you're saying is like drive it towards the business value and drive it through that. Anybody else want to share?
Yeah, so looking at it, I would say from a IT perspective, right? One of the things we focus on is the customer. And for the VA, we're really majorly focused on the veteran, their caregivers, the survivors. And so it's quite difficult to sometimes, when you're in operational aspect, is that you may not be the one talking to that veteran. You may not be helping them directly. So it's tying that. So everything we look at from a technology point of view is how is it going to make the job of the person helping the veteran better? And that's how, from a service desk perspective, that's why we use some robotics. So we'll get an incident in, request. Why have it make a stop at 1 or 2 different locations, which would elongate the time? We use robotics and say, well, that thing needs to go over here. And you cut down 48 hours. That's keeping the customer focused, utilizing that automation, utilizing the technologies to make it better for the customer. And if you always keep the customer in mind, your outcome's is gonna speak for itself. And then you need to measure everything. If you implement something and you don't get that value, stop. Don't continue to the process, right? Make sure you are measuring, because measuring what matters, it's very important.
Yeah,
I was just going to say, Bob and I were talking backstage about, moving away from kind of the transactional kind of workflow that we see a lot. We see it a lot in particularly the supporting organizations in the federal government, and moving more towards the outcome-based or making sure that those supporting organizations can understand how they can contribute or how they are contributing to the mission. And you can set up this type of technology to make sure that they can see that. And they can feel that, and it'll make their work less transactional and more security outcome focused or more mission outcome focused.
Yeah, well, there's good connection. So business value, customer focus. Devon, you want to share?
I love Bob's answer, and it's one of the things that we're focused on is really how do we automate, how do we remove the barriers for answering these various questions when it comes from cyber operations teams. So that's something that we've done, is deploy vendor agnostic tools that can integrate with other tools, and therefore we can get answers quicker without actually having to go to somebody else and stopping them from doing what's more important, and that's really helping out the student experience. So we've deployed that out. We're deploying other tools that are vendor agnostic that we can integrate with our tool set so that we can better answer the questions about what's going on in our environment. How do we quickly remediate things that we see? And that's something that has tremendously sped up the process for us to respond to the department as well as understand where we are today.
Part of what we recognize is that 95% of major incidents are caused by insiders, whether they're intentionally or unintentionally causing the thing. So by using AI, machine learning, and emerging technologies, we've been able to adopt a people-first approach and then only add tools when it becomes really necessary. So by consolidating in this approach with a single pane of glass, we're able to not only speed our processes, but automate the customer experience so that they know exactly how to ask for help, how to get cyber, how to be able to be the strongest link on our behalf. We've taken a really strong cultural approach so that they know that we are ineffective without their excellence. And that message has really helped our cyber teams focus on those places where we can control, influence, or persuade others to be that part that stops being the resistance and starts being the revolution.
Thank you. What I hear, the core is automation, and it is judicious automation. And in kind of bookending this thing, I think, Bob, we started with you talking about best practices in automation. I want to kind of bring it around to what are the differences in operational resiliency that you're seeing for people who are less automated versus more automated? Because we know it's not all flip of a switch. So, if you can share some of that.
Correct. So even within the organization, so you figure that the VA has over 590 what we call PIV users, right? And we support over 800 different applications. So even within our organization, we have adopters of automation, and we have people that haven't adopted as fast as I would like. There's reasons for that, because I'm the one that gets called in the middle of the night when there's an issue. I'm not, but my team is. So less automation usually leads to longer outages, longer mean time to detect, longer mean time to resolve, less openness on what is or isn't going on in the environment. They're not as forthcoming. They're not as quick to embrace what we have in our saying now, embrace the red. And that is going in and looking at the event that happened, what happened, identify if it was a human error or not, what are you going to do to fix it and correct it. More automation is you're driving your mean time to detect down, you're getting on the issue. You're going to have issues no matter what. But the sooner you can find those issues, the sooner they percolate up, the sooner you can get the teams working together to fix them. For example, when I first started in this position, we had over 1,000 high priority incidents a year. I'm proud to say that from this fiscal year to the end of February, we've actually conducted over 800 what we call near misses. That's catching an event before it had customer impact. Some of them are circuit outages, some of them are memory filling up, and we were able to get and invoke some change before it happened. But we didn't have that just a couple of years ago. That, maturing that process, that's 800 less outages that are going to impact the customer. Again, keeping the customer in mind, they don't even know. They come to work in the morning, the clinic comes open, they're able to see the veterans, they're able to log into their systems and be able to work. So the biggest thing is that, right? The more automation they have, the more forthcoming they are. Less automation, you got to pull it out of them. But if you stick with it, they'll come around.
Okay. So, I mean, very, very interesting. I think we've got different kind of perspectives. And if I kind of summarize some of the things that stood out to me from what our participants on the panel have shared with us, we talked about business outcomes, value-driven. We talked about customer-focused. We talked about cultural awareness. We talked about integrations to other areas in the organization. And we talked about automation, but judicious automation, but automation is the core. So, resilient government, secure automation, you heard it. Thank you, Savan, Bob, Rick, Davon, and Dr. Rodrigue. I think this has been a very informative session. I have already learned a lot here, so I hope you guys share my sentiment. And I know quite a few of you are waiting to join the executive circle, but I want to take this opportunity again to thank all of our panelists and hope you have a great rest of the day here at the Federal Forum. Thank you very much.